Before Rio learned silence, one careless sentence could steal his entire day. If someone questioned his work, he explained. If someone misunderstood his intention, he corrected them. If someone praised another man in front of him, he found a way to mention his own effort. And if anyone hinted that he had failed in some small way, he defended himself so quickly that most people never had time to finish the accusation. Rio thought he was protecting his reputation. In truth, he was kneeling before every opinion that passed by. He was not a bad man. He worked as a record keeper for a rice merchant. He kept clean ledgers. He supported his mother. He paid his debts on time. He even helped neighbors with letters and accounts. But he had one exhausting habit. He needed everyone to see him correctly. And because of that, every conversation became heavier around him. One day, a porter at the merchant's yard said, "The counts from yesterday are off." Rio immediately snapped, "They are not off. I checked them myself. If the sacks are missing, ask the warehouse, not my ledger." The porter shrugged. "Maybe I was mistaken." But the damage was done. 3 workers nearby had gone quiet. Rio felt heat in his face for the next hour. By sunset, he was still replaying a sentence the porter himself had already forgotten. That evening, Rio's older sister said something he did not expect. "You are tiring to be around." He turned sharply. "What do you mean?" She folded the washed clothes and said, "Every remark becomes a trial. Every trial becomes your chance to prove that you should never be blamed. But people do not feel close to a man who is always defending his shape." Rio started explaining at once. Then he stopped, not because he agreed, because he heard how predictable he had become. A few days later, he carried a set of copied ledgers to a monastery outside the town. As he climbed the stone steps, a young monk at the gate looked at the sun and said, "You are late." Rio answered before the monk had even finished breathing. "I am not late. The river path was crowded and your steward told me afternoon. If I am late, then your message was late." The monk said nothing. He simply moved aside. From the courtyard, an elderly abbot had heard everything. His name was Haku. When Rio delivered the ledgers, Haku invited him for tea. They sat in a quiet room with a low table between them. On the table was a small bronze bell. Haku touched it lightly. It rang once and went still. "That was a large answer," said Haku, "for a small sentence." Rio smiled with embarrassment. "I only wanted him to understand." Haku tilted his head. "Yes, you seem to want that very much." Rio looked down at his cup. After a while, the abbot lifted the bell. "When this bell rings, does it explain that it is a bell?" Rio almost smiled. "No." "Does the mountain defend its height?" "No." "Does a clear well argue with the mud stirred at its edge?" Rio was silent. Haku placed the bell in front of him. "For 30 days, he said, let people think you are wrong in all small matters." Rio frowned. "That seems foolish." "Then you are exactly the man who should try it," Haku continued. "If someone criticizes your timing, your image, your tone, your minor mistakes, do not rush to explain. If truth is needed to protect someone from harm, speak. If silence would permit real injustice, speak. But for every small wound to your image, remain still. Touch this bell in your pocket before answering." Rio stared at him. "And what will that teach me?" Haku replied, "Whether your life is shaped by truth or by the fear of being seen imperfectly." Rio left irritated. He also carried the little bell. The next morning, the merchant's nephew said, "You stacked the receipts in the wrong order." Rio's mouth opened. Then his hand touched the bell inside his robe. He closed his mouth again. The nephew rearranged 2 papers and walked away. Nothing terrible happened. Rio felt both foolish and strangely free. On day 3, a customer complained that he had waited too long to be served. Rio had a perfect explanation. Another customer had arrived first. A runner had interrupted him. The scales had to be checked. His fingers found the bell. He bowed and said only, "Thank you for waiting." The customer's shoulders softened. Rio stood there stunned. A defense he never gave could not become an argument. On day 6, he failed. A clerk from another shop joked in front of several men, "Be careful, Rio will correct the way you breathe." The men laughed. Rio felt the old fire rise. He gave a sharp speech about discipline and carelessness and how fools confused precision with pride. When he finished, nobody argued, but the air felt heavy. That evening he went to the monastery ashamed. Haku poured tea and listened. "I failed," said Rio. "He insulted me and I answered." Haku nodded. "Then begin again tomorrow." "That is all?" "That is how gardens are weeded." Rio looked frustrated. "I want to stop doing this immediately." Haku smiled. "Yes, even your impatience is defending an image of yourself." During the second week, Rio began to notice something more uncomfortable than criticism. Silence forced him to hear where other people were partly right. He really did interrupt. He really did sound sharper than necessary. He really did spend more energy on being blameless than on being useful. So he shifted his effort. When a porter said the sack count was confusing, Rio did not explain the numbering system. He changed the labeling. When his sister said his tone felt cold, he stopped telling her he was merely tired. He spoke more gently. When his employer hinted that the front desk felt tense around him, Rio stopped proving he worked harder than others. He began greeting customers before reaching for the ledger. By the third week, something surprising happened. People were more relaxed around him. Workers asked him questions again. Customers stayed longer. Even mistakes were easier to fix because they no longer arrived wrapped in pride. Near the end of the 30 days, an important moment came. The merchant discovered that a payment from a traveling buyer had not been recorded properly. A younger clerk muttered, loud enough for several people to hear, "Perhaps Rio missed it." The old Rio would have defended himself instantly. He would have named dates, pointed to witnesses, and treated the room as a court. Instead, he touched the bell in his pocket and said, "Let us check carefully." They reviewed the documents together. The missing note was found in a different bundle, misplaced by the buyer's own servant. The merchant looked at Rio for a long second. Later that evening, he said, "You have changed. Before, you tried to win every moment. Now people trust you in them." A month later, when the merchant expanded the business to a second warehouse, he asked Rio to oversee the records for both locations. It was not because Rio had become louder or more brilliant or more admired. It was because he had become easier to trust. When the 30 days ended, Rio returned the bell to Haku. The abbot placed it back on the table. "What did you learn?" he asked. Rio took his time. "I learned that many things I called truth were only hunger. Hunger to be seen correctly. Hunger to escape discomfort. Hunger to make my image safe every minute." Haku nodded. "And now?" Rio looked at the bell. "Now I think silence is not surrender. It is refusing to bow before every passing opinion." Haku smiled. "That is close enough." Many people ruin their peace trying to correct every misunderstanding. But not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your nervous system. Not every careless remark deserves the key to your inner weather. If a truth must be spoken to protect what matters, speak it. But if you are only trying to rescue your image from a small bruise, silence may be the wiser act. Because the man with nothing to prove can finally spend his energy improving what is real. If this story is for